Rain hammered the windshield as Elena Carter gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale against the flash of lightning. The storm had come out of nowhere, savage, unrelenting, as if the sky itself were warning her to turn back. But she didn't. She couldn't. Not when she was this close. The artifact she had spent months chasing, the golden pendant etched with runes no historian could decipher, rested in her pocket, its warmth pulsing like a heartbeat. Wind tore through the night, howling across the empty desert road. The wipers smeared more than they cleared, and thunder cracked like splitting stone. Elena's mind raced as fiercely as the storm outside. 2 years ago, her fiancé had died in a crash on a night like this. She'd buried her heart alongside him and filled the silence with work, chasing ghosts through history. Maybe that was why she couldn't stop now. Maybe she wanted to believe that time could be rewritten. The GPS flickered and died. The headlights dimmed. Then the pendant burned hot against her skin. She pulled it from her pocket, eyes widening as faint symbols glowed along its edge, forming a pattern that seemed alive. The hum grew louder, low, melodic, ancient. "Not now," she whispered, half in fear, half in awe. The world exploded in light. For a breathless instant, everything vanished, the car, the storm, even sound itself. When Elena opened her eyes, the air was still. Sand stretched in all directions under a bronze sky. The storm was gone, replaced by heat that shimmered off endless dunes. Her heart pounded as she staggered to her feet, brushing dust from her jeans. There was no road, no car, no sign of civilization. Only the distant thunder of hooves. Figures emerged through the haze, riders on horseback, cloaked in leather and metal, their faces half covered. They surrounded her, shouting in a language she didn't recognize. The pendant glowed brighter, catching their attention. One of them dismounted, sword drawn, eyes sharp with suspicion. "Wait. I'm not," she began, but her words were lost to the desert wind. The man barked a command. Rough hands seized her arms, forcing her to her knees. Panic surged through her, yet she couldn't fight. Every sound, every movement felt too real to be a dream. A deeper voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" The soldiers froze. The speaker stepped forward, a tall man with a scar tracing his jaw, eyes the color of storm clouds. He studied her, not with hostility, but with wary fascination. "She fell from the sky," one of the men muttered. The stranger's gaze lingered on the pendant glowing faintly at her throat. "No," he said quietly, almost to himself. "She was sent." Elena tried to speak, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. The world tilted, darkened, and she felt the stranger's arms catch her before she hit the ground. As consciousness faded, she heard his voice. Steady, commanding, impossible to ignore. "Take her to the fortress. The answers will come at dawn." Elena woke to the crackle of fire and the scent of leather and smoke. The room was small, carved from stone, its walls flickering with torchlight. Her head throbbed. For a moment she thought it was another dream, until the door opened and the man from the desert stepped in. He moved with a quiet authority, his boots echoing on the floor. "You're awake," he said, his voice low and measured. "You gave us quite a mystery, stranger." Elena pushed herself up, the blanket slipping from her shoulders. "Where am I?" "In the fortress of Blackridge," he replied. "You were found in the wasteland, dressed like no one I've ever seen, holding a relic that hums when touched. Some call that witchcraft." He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "My name is Rafe." She swallowed hard. "I'm not a witch. I don't even know how I got here." Rafe's eyes softened, though suspicion lingered in their depths. "Then perhaps the gods chose you. Or cursed you. Either way, the king will want to know." Before she could answer, the door burst open. A man stumbled in, grinning despite the sword at his hip. "Captain Rafe, you're making our guest nervous." His tone was teasing, his eyes bright with mischief. "Name's Kai," he said to Elena. "And before you ask, yes, everyone here looks this good. You're welcome." Rafe sighed. "Out." Kai winked and leaned against the doorframe. "The others want to see her. You can't hide a skyborn woman forever." Minutes later, Elena found herself in a dim hall surrounded by faces both curious and guarded. Kai lounged beside her, smirking. Across the table sat Lucien, calm and sharp-eyed, his hands stained with ink and herbs. "She's frightened," he murmured, "and exhausted. Let her breathe." The last man in the room, Talon, stood near the doorway, silent as stone. His arms were crossed, his gaze unreadable. Scars traced his temple like cracks in marble. When their eyes met, she felt a flicker of something. Fear or recognition, she couldn't tell. As they debated what to do with her, Elena's confusion gave way to defiance. "I'm not property," she said. "And I won't be treated like one." The room stilled. Rafe's expression shifted from irritation to quiet respect. "Then you'll have to prove you belong here," he said. "The king demands to see you at dawn." Kai grinned. "Good luck. He doesn't like surprises." Lucien offered a gentle nod. "Whatever you are, fate brought you here. Don't waste it." Outside, thunder rolled across the desert, distant yet ominous. Elena clutched the pendant beneath her collar, its warmth pulsing like a heartbeat. She didn't know if it was protecting her, or preparing her. Rafe's voice broke the silence. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow decides everything." Elena looked toward the horizon through a narrow window. Lightning flashed against the dunes, carving silver veins across the sky. Somewhere within that storm, her old world was fading. Somewhere beyond it, her destiny waited. The air inside the fortress thickened with tension as dawn broke. Elena stood before the king's throne, her wrists bound, the golden pendant gleaming faintly against her chest. The hall was vast and cold, lined with banners that whispered with every draft. The king's eyes were like sharpened steel, unblinking and hungry for truth. "They say you fell from the sky," he said. "Is that what you claim?" Elena hesitated. The truth sounded mad even to her. "I don't know how I came here," she said softly. "But I mean no harm." A murmur swept through the court. The king's advisor stepped forward, a thin man with a serpent smile. "She carries the relic of prophecy, the woman of light. You know what that means, your majesty." Rafe tensed at her side, one hand on his sword. "Prophecies are the refuge of fools," he growled. "She's just lost, not divine." The king's gaze shifted toward him. "You defend her too eagerly, Captain. Tell me, do you defy your oath?" Silence pressed down like a weight. Rafe bowed his head but said nothing. Later, as the sun burned over the desert, Elena found herself confined to a small chamber. She paced restlessly, thoughts tangled in fear and anger. She had trusted Rafe, and yet his secrets grew heavier each day. He had known more about that pendant. She saw it in the way his eyes flickered when it glowed. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Kai slipped inside, a shadow of his usual grin. "Bad news," he whispered. "Rafe's been arrested. The king thinks he helped you escape fate." Elena's stomach clenched. "Then we'll get him out." Kai arched a brow. "You're brave, sweetheart. Brave or mad?" "Maybe both," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Together they crept through the stone corridors, dodging guards and torchlight. Lucien joined them near the courtyard, his face drawn and pale. "This is lunacy," he murmured, yet his hands were already preparing a tincture to knock out the gate sentries. Talon waited by the stables, his silence more loyal than words. When they reached the dungeon, Rafe was already chained, blood streaking his temple. He looked up as they entered, surprise flickering across his bruised face. "You shouldn't have come," he rasped. "I couldn't leave you," Elena said. "Not after everything." Their escape was swift and brutal. Steel clashed in narrow halls, footsteps echoing through the fortress. Elena fought beside them, adrenaline drowning her fear. For the first time, she felt part of their world, alive, defiant, necessary. But victory was brief. As they fled into the open desert, a sudden blast of light erupted from the pendant. The air split with a crack, and for a moment she saw her reflection, not in this world, but in her own, standing before her apartment window. The vision vanished, leaving only silence and the scent of burning sand. The others stared at her, awestruck and afraid. Elena touched the fractured pendant, its edges glowing like dying embers. "I think," she whispered, Time is breaking. Night had fallen heavy over the desert, its silence broken only by the hiss of wind against stone. The air smelled of smoke and iron, remnants of the battle that had ended only hours before. Elena sat beside the dying fire, her hands trembling as she turned the broken pendant in her palms. Its once golden surface was cracked through the center, faint light bleeding from within like the last breath of a star. Around her lay the weary remains of the fight, Rafe's sword, Lucien's bloodied cloak, and the quiet grief that followed victory too dearly bought. Lucien's death had come swiftly, a single arrow meant for her. Even now she could still hear his voice, soft, measured, full of faith he had never lost. Love doesn't belong to time, it belongs to souls. The memory burned deeper than the wound on her arm. Rafe crouched beside her, his face shadowed by firelight. "The king's forces are gone," he said quietly. "You saved this world, Elena. Whatever you were meant to be, you fulfilled it." She looked at him, seeing not the hardened captain but the man who had risked everything to believe in her. "Then why doesn't it feel like victory?" He hesitated, glancing toward the pendant. "Because victory asks for a price. And you're not done paying." The air shimmered, a low hum filling the night. The pendant's light flared again, blindingly bright, pulling the sand into spirals around her. The same pull she had felt once before, time tugging at her, urging her back. Kai stumbled forward, his usual grin gone. "No, no, no. You're not leaving now. You just got good at this whole hero thing." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I don't have a choice." Talon approached, silent as ever, but his voice when it came was raw. "The sky calls what belongs to it. But remember this, you are not forgotten." The storm of light grew stronger, lifting her hair, her breath, her fear. She reached out, taking Rafe's hand in hers. "If there's another time, another life, I'll find you," he said, pulling her close for a heartbeat that felt eternal. "Even if the stars burn out." The world fractured into brilliance. The desert dissolved, the fire vanished, and the air turned cold. Elena gasped as her knees hit smooth marble. She was back, in the museum, surrounded by glass cases and silence. The pendant lay shattered beside her, its glow fading into nothing. For a long moment she didn't move. The ache in her chest was both unbearable and exquisite, a proof that what she'd lived was no dream. Outside, dawn bled across the horizon. She pressed a hand to her heart and whispered into the stillness, "Love is the only thing time can't erase." Then, almost as if the air itself responded, a faint echo, 4 voices overlapping, answered from somewhere beyond. And she smiled through her tears. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Who would you choose, Rafe, Kai, Lucien, or Talon?